Today, we're looking at a magenta ink by Callifolio Grenat. Hi, I'm Adam, and I'm an ink guy. I get inks, test them, and share the results with you. Now, there's timestamps down below so that if you're only interested in certain parts, you can skip around. But if you've got the time, I'd appreciate you checking out the entire video. You can also follow me over on Instagram. And if you're new here and like fountain pen ink reviews, I would invite you to subscribe. In order to make sure I have a range of experience with this ink, I do the writing samples. I then put the ink into this Levenger True Writer with a broad nib. I used it to write for a day and to take my notes for this video. This first writing sample is done on Clairfontaine, Tomoe River, and Rhodia paper in order to have some kind of standardization to look at. There's additional writing samples later in the video. Now, let's look at the writing sample. I picked this ink up in sample form, so it came in a vial like this. And to keep my writing samples consistent, I use a Jinhao 159 with a Goulet 1.1 stub, a Jinhao X450 with a Goulet medium, and a Jinhao X750 with a Goulet extra fine. Let's take a look at the Clairfontaine. No bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 is no feather spread, halo sheen, or shade. The extra fine is lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, and 8 seconds to dry. Medium is the same tone as the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, and 11 seconds to dry. Scrubby for both show us no color variation because we're not getting any in the writing. Tomoe River. No bleeding and normal Tomoe River ghosting. The 1.1 is no feather spread, halo sheen, and no shade. Extra fine is a bit lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, and 14 seconds to dry. Medium is same tone as the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, and 20 seconds to dry. Scrubby for both show us no color variation, and we didn't get any. And Rhodia. No bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 is no feather spread, halo sheen, and no shade. Extra fine is lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, or shade, and 9 seconds to dry. Wow, that's a thin 9. Medium is the same tone as the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, and 12 seconds to dry. Scrubby for both show us no color variation, and we didn't get any. I agree with Vita that I've learned a lot by doing multiple chromatographies. The one on the left is done the way it's supposed to be done. I put a line of ink down and immediately put it into water for 10 to 15 seconds. And we see this kind of very light grayish purple on the bottom that pushes its way up, and then we get into that magenta tone. But at the top, we start to see a very dull purple again. So it looks like two different purples here. It's really very interesting. The one on the right, I let dry for 10 minutes before I dunk it into water, and that grayish purple at the bottom really formed a line, really got in there and stayed. Now that magenta tone pushes its way up and it's there, and we see that at the top and the bottom, that is very much the same tone, but definitely different dyes because one is much more permanent than the other. So this is quite interesting for that reason. Resistance tests are done to see how well this ink can be expected to perform on the page, and more importantly, how hard it may be to clean from your pen. I let the smear dry for 3 days before testing it. Looking at the highlighter, I feel perfectly good using this in a note-taking situation because of how well that handled itself, so you can go ahead and use it and highlight safely. Water's reactivating and lifting, but not all of the ink. We're really seeing a lot of that grayish purple still left and there and not really moving out, like from the bottom of the second chromatography. But pen flush is completely breaking it up, starting to show the white of the paper coming through, meaning pen flush is all you would need to get this out of your pen. The 1/3 bleach solution, even though you're not going to need it, completely obliterates this ink, but does stain the paper slightly yellow. I test for viscosity or flow using a thing called a tilt test. I will link how I do that, the video of it, down below or up in the cards. I also then put it onto a standard distribution so it's more easily seen with all of the inks that I've tested. Now, for the inks I've tested, I've found an average viscosity of 2.5, with the realm of normal being from 2.1 to 2.9. Callifolio's Grenat has a viscosity of 1.78, making this a wetter ink.
To find my average dry times, I use my writing samples done on Clairfontaine, Tomoe River, and Rhodia paper. I average those. Now, for the inks I've tested, I have found an average dry time of 17 seconds, with a realm of normal being from 13 to 21 seconds.
Callifolio Grenat has an average dry time of 12 seconds, making this a faster drying ink. Instead of finding inks that look like Callifolio Grenat, I would prefer to find an ink that complements its color on the page. So I wanted a nice blue-black, and I went with Noodler's 54th Massachusetts.
The second writing sample is done on Viscosity, G-Lalo, and Franklin Christoph paper.
Here we're looking at Apica paper from Viscosity notebooks. Now we get no bleeding and no ghosting. The 1.1 is no feather, spread, halo sheen, and no shade. The extra fine is quite a bit lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, and 6 seconds to dry. Medium is the same tone as the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, and 9 seconds to dry. Scrubby for both shows no color variation, and there is none. How about gray G-Lalo paper? Well, we get no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 is no feather spread, halo sheen, and no shade. The extra fine is lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, and 4 seconds to dry. Medium is the same tone as the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, or shade, and 7 seconds to dry. Scrubby for both show, no color variation. I just wanted to see how it looked on gray paper. Last up is Franklin Christoph paper with no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 is no feather spread, halo sheen, and no shade. The extra fine is lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, and 3 seconds to dry. Medium is the same tone as the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, and 6 seconds to dry. Scrubby for both show us no color variation, and we didn't get any, and that is all that I have for the writing sample.
So what do I think of Callifolio Grenat? This is a perfect example of how a magenta ink can take the place of red when grading student papers, and they can find the color interesting. And that's just what happened here. I find this an interesting color for that very reason. So what nib and pen will give the best writing experience? While a wet pen will make it a little bit darker, a dry pen makes it a little bit lighter. And it's the lighter version from a fine nib that I found most pleasing to look at. I do new ink reviews every single day, so if you're new here, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. Thanks for watching.